Prometheus was a misunderstood science fiction directed by Ridley Scott. The prevailing theory among the public is that the film is a statement about how a creator alien species above humanity grew disappointed with and planned to destroy us with a bioweapon, the aforementioned black goo. This viscous substance, which we shall refer to as the recombinant from this point on, is a mysterious substance present in the film's beginning scene, whereupon an engineer sacrifices himself to evidently kickstart life on Earth by ingesting his infected corpse into a volcanically active planet with functional oceans. The engineer is the only one of his kind present in the scene, the only living thing in the scene aside from the recombinant itself, which is present in a ritualistic and ceremonial jar. This is important because the recombinant is incompatible with his DNA upon ingestion of it in a rite whereupon his people abandon him to die. His only mission is to collapse into the ocean, which is why he chooses this spot. Upon his death, the engineer seeds life on Earth, where 4 billion years later, Shaw will open a cave to find a star chart, selecting where LV-223 will meet her with the recombinant and remnants of the engineer's military outpost. But let's ask some questions first. 1. Why is the recombinant incompatible with the DNA of the engineer, but is compatible with every other living thing in the film, including Shaw herself, which births in her the gestation of her child into this squid-like being that then impregnates the engineer with the deacon? Why? The deacon is the entire point of why the first engineer in the film, who we shall refer to as the heretic, sacrifices himself to start life on Earth and thus humanity. This engineer is distinctly and ideologically different and opposed to the engineer in the end of the film, who we shall refer to as the loyalist. The loyalist engineer is not the same faction as the heretic, hence why we distinguish them, and this is upon the hidden plot of the movie Prometheus. Like Shaw herself, we were wrong, we were so wrong. The film is not about a single unified race of enlightened creators seeing their creation as too flawed to satiate their desired outcome. No, human beings are merely tools, instruments, bridges, and means to an end which is the rebirth of their creators, the deacons. The true plot of Prometheus are not merely the events of the film, but events long before only implied and only discernible through careful detection of the film's imagery and themes. The backstory is that the engineers were, once, a mostly unified society. They existed after taking control over their creator species, the deacons, who created the engineers as a slave race to serve them in their reproduction cycles. However, unsatisfied by slavery and doomed to die as the product of a deacon's reproductive cycle, the engineers struck back by modifying their own DNA to become incompatible with deacon DNA directly. This is the source of the recombinant, the black goo. It is not black goo, it is the last remnant of deacon DNA kept sacred and secret by the heretics, whom likely stole it from the government, starting a faction war between loyalists seeking to keep the status quo. This is why the statues depict the human being beneath the deacon in the recombinant containment room. It is a holy depiction of the god of the heretics, who view the deacons as their holy masters, and wish to rebirth them in such a fashion as to make their DNA compatible with engineers' new genetics through a series of intermediaries. First one being a human mother, able to gestate a bridge fetus to term, whereupon it would, in the plan of the heretics, inseminate a willing engineer, heretic, with the deacon, and thus rebirth their gods. Naturally, government loyalists found out about this operation too late to stop the chosen heretic from starting life on Earth. Their operation then becomes one of military containment and mop-up operations, the goal being to eliminate all remaining heretic forces, destroy the facility and evidence of its existence, containment, or destroying of the black deacon DNA recombinant, and then eventually the destruction of Earth as a final containment plan. Essentially, like Shaw, we were wrong. The film was not about a united, enlightened species trying to elevate humanity to the stars. Humanity's elevation to the stars was instead planned so humanity could seed the trilobite fetus with a viable union of deacon and engineer DNA once more. To rebirth the heretics' godmaster race, the Deacons, this plan elapsed over 4 billion years. The operation likely fails due to, as discussed, governmental and heretic forces on 5523 all die fighting one another, except for the final, who enters cryostasis. This is a loyalist trying to destroy everything, including humanity, as it is evidence in the cause of a heretical faction trying to revive their creator species, whom they view as gods, and humans as a tool to reach them. Ridley Scott's Prometheus often feels misunderstood, frequently framed as a simple tale of a disappointed creator species aiming to destroy humanity with a bioweapon, the black goo, or recombinant. This perspective, however, overlooks crucial details, especially the opening scene where an engineer sacrifices himself into a primordial Earth. This heretic engineer ingests the recombinant, which is incompatible with his DNA, yet miraculously compatible with Earth's nascent life forms, including humanity. His singular mission, to dissolve into the ocean, seeding life. This seemingly random act kicks off a 4 billion year plan culminating in Dr. Shaw finding a star chart to LV-223, a military outpost housing more recombinant and dead engineers. But why the incompatibility? Why the sacrifice? And why is the later loyalist engineer so hostile? The answer lies in a hidden plot. Humanity is not a revered creation, but a biological bridge. The heretic engineer and the loyalist engineer belong to opposing factions. The engineers, once enslaved by their own creators, the deacons, rebelled by genetically modifying themselves to become incompatible with deacon DNA. The recombinant is not just a bioweapon, it's the last remnant of pure deacon DNA, revered by the heretic faction who stole it from their government. These heretics sought to rebirth the deacons, their true gods, through a series of intermediaries with humanity as the crucial first step. The statues on LV-223 depicting humans beneath deacons represent this heretic theology. Their plan was for a human female to gestate a bridge fetus, the trilobite, which would then impregnate a willing heretic engineer, thereby re-establishing the deacon lineage. The government loyalists, upon discovering this heresy, launched a devastating internal war on 5523 to stop the heretics. This conflict explains the chaos, the dead engineers, and the ultimate failure of both factions' direct involvement. The surviving loyalist engineers' later actions are not arbitrary malice, but a final cleanup operation to destroy all remaining evidence, including humanity itself, as it represents the heretics' forbidden tool for their god's return. Ultimately, like Dr. Shaw, we were wrong. Prometheus isn't about an enlightened, unified creator. It's about humanity's accidental emergence from a cosmic civil war, a product of division and conflict, unwittingly stumbling upon the remnants of a long-dead, deeply heretical plan to resurrect an ancient, terrifying race. We weren't the product of God's celestial unity, we were the product of division and war. According to Prometheus's story, we pulled the casket off a long-dead war. The mistake was believing the engineers were A, enlightened, and B, united, when neither is true. The humans, particularly Shaw, project their own hopes and ideals onto the engineers. They see them as benevolent creators who would naturally be wise, peaceful, and guiding. They are powerful, yes, but not enlightened in the human sense. The human expedition assumes a monolithic engineer civilization with a singular purpose. Our theory reveals a deep, devastating schism. The heretics who worshipped the xenomorph and sought its rebirth, and the government that fought against them, leading to civil war and mass casualties. This internal division explains the chaos on LV-223 and the varied motivations at play. The tragedy for humanity is that they stumbled into the aftermath of a cosmic civil war, utterly unaware of the stakes and the true nature of the gods they sought. It elevates the film from a simple, aliens want to kill us narrative to a much more complex and tragic story about misunderstanding, ambition, and the unforeseen consequences of interacting with ancient, warring powers.